Oh, that's pretty cool. Anybody here? Anybody here? Welcome to the stream. I just thought I'd give it a few minutes to see if anybody would come in, but I'll go ahead and talk anyway. Um, it's a little late night. Uh, just kind of looking for something to talk about. Was hoping maybe there was some other night owls out there that were looking for a little conversation. But I've always wanted to talk about this. I've talked about it on forums in the past. Um, but I just, uh, one of the most annoying things about doing this so far, real quickly, side note is, I don't know if anybody's there. Sometimes this thing will tell me there's people connected, and sometimes it won't. Sometimes I think uh, sometimes it'll say in live chat there's people participating, but it'll say there's nobody connected. I don't know if there's that long of a delay or what. But anyway, the thing, uh, the thing about, I was going to talk about computer assisted gaming, and if you're not um, familiar with the term or what it entails, it's simply this: that you play a tabletop game, but a computer some way, is involved, not as a video game, but in means of making combat calculations and or um, record keeping of some sort or reference material. Um, I made out of basic. I made a D&D combat calculator, for THACO, and that was way back. Now the problem with that one is it was on a color computer, and at the time I couldn't get that color computer very close to the table, so it really didn't work out that well. I couldn't move the computer around my um, it just it was light enough, but it wasn't. It was a family computer and not completely my computer. So, um, and I had a Tandy laptop, and I used that extensively. Unfortunately, it didn't have basic and on it. It had about everything else, but it didn't have basic. It was upgraded and all this stuff. But I used spreadsheets and I used word processing to make up character sheets or uh, unit records, and spreadsheets did some calculation and stuff like that. But uh, and as computers got more advanced, so did the tools. There was stuff called Ship Base that's still available. Tank Base made by a guy named Ferrier, and he made several, and none of them were completely finished. They were kind of unfinished things, and um, but one was for Tractix, and it worked pretty well. It was open source, you could program it. But there's something out there called Birthier is another example, and that's fully finished, and it doesn't look very modern, but it works, and it handles campaign games for Napoleonics and stuff like that. There's a whole myriad of these things. Maybe I should have, had I thought it through, I could have used. Um, well, you know what? Is anybody here? Anybody? No one's getting on this thing, are you? Oh, maybe you are. Um, well, there's a lot of them, but one of the things that always happened when I brought it up, because you hear people say this, well, it's too hard to, uh, calculate everything, and you're always looking at charts with war games, and it makes the game go slow, and blah 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 blah. Okay, so these computer assisted programs help mitigate that, but uh, a lot of people didn't like them. BattleTech was one that had a lot of them. If you go to Sarna.net, there's still a ton of that stuff out there. Now, some of it's pretty old and it may not run, or there's new versions of it or whatever, you know. But that game, what they did is they have what's the one they call it now? Not TechMech, but there's another one. Anyway, there's several virtually, like there's computer games for it. And once you get into that, people are like, well, if I'm going to use a computer, I might as well play a computer game. That was one of the excuses well, not excuse, but one of the reasons I heard people say they didn't want computer assisted is they're going to take the leap. They might as well take the leap all the way into the computer game. Okay. Um, but in the past, graphics weren't as good as models, graphically. You know, 16 color EGA M1 tank in 1990 was a blocky, toy looking thing. It didn't. But if you had a pewter micro armor, it was beautiful if you painted it well. So, um, but they still can be utilitarian. And another reason I said, people just like I said, well, the computer, I can't get it to the table. In 1993 that was a thing, but it's not now. And going back to BattleTech, there's BattleTech um, calculators right on your phone, and so I just never understood the aversion to that, because it could really help things out. I think some people were saying I'd rather have a product that didn't require a calculator to begin with. Well, but the thing is wargaming, all these things. There's going to be math no matter what you do, because you're having situations where things need to be compared, and the way that you compare things, is through mathematics, through numerical comparison. If you want an object and solid, I mean, people can compare through objectivity and say, well, this drink is better than that drink and all that. But that's your opinion stuff. If you want to see who has the heavier bucket of apples, you use math. Right? So if you want to see who has the better swing, or can the more accuracy, eventually it's going to boil down to some sort of numerical rating for it. So excuse me, I, I'm still working off today's air. We had an air quality thing, and I got some. I'm not going to, get a runny nose on camera and make it gross, but I'm a little clogged up. Something about the pollen count or something. So, um, but I just always found the psychology around the aversion to these assists odd, especially in the past. But I'm an older guy in gaming, and these are topics that may not be timely anymore. What the thing is I've finally gotten into a realm where I can communicate like this way. But maybe some of the topics I'm going to come up with are pulled out of the archives. Maybe this is too old of a discussion, and we're past that in gaming. But I don't know. I see where um, even with role playing games, and I mean, D&D is doing it to an extent. Whatever they're calling their little computer system now, one D&D or whatever. Um, that's kind of a computer assist. It's a little different, I guess, because you're not playing it next to a tabletop. But and there's what it not what do they call AR? What's the anyway? Ah, Jesus. See, old guy. I can't remember how that technology augmented reality. Jesus Christ. Anyway, augmented reality. I heard somebody made an augmented reality game, and they said, the problem with that is uh, you had to be staring through some special goggles. It didn't really add anything to the game. Yeah, it was neat. You were looking at little men moving around through goggles, but it didn't really. It made the game clunky to play and didn't really add anything to it. So it didn't really go anywhere, and which I found interesting. Um, but at some point, I remember one guy telling me I had a guy who would play video games with me for hours, days sometimes. We had weekends in a couple of cases where we went to LAN parties and stuff, and he loved it. And I said, "You're so big into some of this stuff like Conan and stuff. Why don't you play a role playing or tabletop game with me?" He wouldn't do it. He said, I'll play that with you when the miniatures are three-dimensional holographs on a table that I can move around." He said that to me in the 90s. I don't think we're that far off from maybe having something like that soon. And I don't know that that really falls into the realm of computer assisted at that point. It's just a different version of computer games. But um, so I may be dating myself, and this may be a dated conversation. But there was some interesting attempts at computer assist, and I never really understood why they didn't take off better. There was one called Tanctics, and it was meant to be played on. I mean, this is a long time ago. It's 35, 40 years ago or whatever, but it was meant to be a miniatures game assist that you'd run on like Atari 800s or Commodore 64s or something like that. And everybody hated it. And I don't know why. I thought this is great, man, because all these people that complain that there's too many charts and math in war games, now it's all gone. Now you've got a computer. But I don't know. Maybe it was the same deal where people were like, if we're going to use this computer, don't you just have a game we can play on it? So maybe that was it. But um, it's there's still some modern versions of computer assisted wargaming, and I was hoping people would come in here and um, offer their opinions or their reasoning or experiences as to why that kind of stuff never took off. Doesn't look like anybody's coming in, so maybe I'll try this some other time.